Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Cracks in the Foundation. Maxwell Hargrove surveyed the sprawling three-story home he'd built for his family with the same calculating precision he applied to everything in his life. The house stood as a monument to his success. Each brick, beam, and window placed according to his exacting standards. At 42, Maxwell had transformed himself from a poor kid from South Boston into one of the Northeast's most respected structural engineers. He'd earned his reputation through brilliant design work, ruthless business tactics, and an unwavering commitment to control. "Daddy, look what I made." 8-year-old Penelope raced across the manicured lawn, her blonde pigtails bouncing as she clutched a clay figurine. Maxwell knelt down, his stern expression softening only for his daughter. "What do we have here, Penny? It's us. See? That's you, me, and Mommy." Penelope pointed to the 3 misshapen figures. "Mommy helped me in her special art room at school." Maxwell examined the clay family with a critical eye. "Your mother helped with this?" "Yeah, Mr. Bailey helped too. He says I'm really good at art, just like Mommy." Maxwell's jaw tightened. "Mr. Bailey? He's new. Mommy says he understands her art in a way nobody else does." Penelope's innocent eyes showed no comprehension of how her words landed like hammer blows. "Is that so?" Maxwell's voice remained controlled, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Later that evening, Maxwell watched his wife, Audrey, prepare dinner. At 38, she remained stunning, tall and elegant with auburn hair and the kind of natural beauty that turned heads. Her position as the elementary school's art teacher seemed to perfectly complement his own career. They were the golden couple of Westlake. "Penny showed me her clay project today," Maxwell said casually. "She mentioned someone named Bailey." Audrey's hands paused momentarily before continuing to chop vegetables. "Thomas Bailey. He's the new assistant principal. He's been helping with the upcoming art show. Seems he's spending a lot of time with my wife and daughter." Audrey laughed, but it sounded forced. "He's passionate about arts education. The school's lucky to have him." "And how passionate is he about married art teachers?" Maxwell asked, his tone deceptively light. "Don't start, Max. Not everyone has ulterior motives like your business rivals." She placed dinner on the table with more force than necessary. "Besides, you've been so busy with the Hudson River project, you've barely been home." Maxwell noted the deflection, the slight flush on her cheeks. "The project ends next week. I'll be home more. Perhaps I'll visit your classroom, see this art show preparation firsthand." Fear flickered across Audrey's face before she masked it with a smile. "That would be nice." That night, while Audrey slept, Maxwell silently accessed her phone. 3 weeks of deleted text messages recovered through his specialized software told him everything. The innocent art teacher and the charming assistant principal, planning meetups in her classroom after hours, exchanges too intimate for colleagues, discussions about how misunderstood she felt in her marriage. Maxwell didn't confront her. That wasn't his style. Instead, he began to watch to plan. He installed a GPS tracker on her car, set up monitoring software on her devices, and started compiling a dossier on Thomas Bailey. Revenge, like engineering, required proper foundation work. Maxwell Hargrove was a patient man. He would build his revenge one carefully placed brick at a time. Chapter 2. Blueprints of Betrayal. Thomas Bailey had arrived at Westlake Elementary 6 months ago, bringing West Coast charm and progressive educational ideas to their conservative New England town. At 35, he had the easy confidence of a man used to getting what he wanted. His office walls displayed impressive credentials from Stanford and Columbia, along with photos from humanitarian missions abroad. Maxwell studied these details during the parent-teacher conference he'd scheduled, ostensibly to discuss Penelope's progress. He noted how Bailey's eyes lingered on Audrey when she joined them, the almost imperceptible touches they exchanged when passing papers. "Penelope is incredibly creative," Bailey said. "She has her mother's artistic talent and her father's attention to detail. Audrey added quickly. Maxwell smiled. I'm pleased to hear she's doing well. I understand you're both working on a special art exhibition. Bailey nodded enthusiastically. Audrey's leading the project. We're transforming the students' work into an immersive experience. The centerpiece will be a collection of fired clay sculptures representing community connections. Sounds ambitious, Maxwell said. Must require long hours. Audrey's smile tightened. It's a labor of love. I'd like to contribute, Maxwell said, watching their reactions carefully. Perhaps I could volunteer some time? Help with construction of the displays. The flicker of panic that passed between Audrey and Bailey confirmed Maxwell's suspicions. That's generous, but unnecessary, Bailey recovered smoothly. We have everything under control. Nonsense. I insist. Maxwell's tone made it clear the discussion was over. My company is always looking for community projects. Consider it done. Over the next 2 weeks, Maxwell became a fixture at the school. He designed and built display pedestals, hung lighting systems, and volunteered in Audrey's classroom. He was polite, helpful, and observed everything while appearing to notice nothing. He saw how Audrey and Bailey communicated through glances when they thought no one was watching. He noticed Audrey staying late in her classroom, claiming to work on projects that showed little progress the next day. He cataloged the pattern of their meetings. Tuesdays and Thursdays when Maxwell typically had late business dinners, occasional Saturdays when Penelope had ballet lessons. At home, Maxwell remained the perfect husband, attentive, supportive, even increasing his affection toward Audrey. His behavior confused her. She grew nervous, making small mistakes. You seem distracted lately, Maxwell commented one evening as they prepared for bed. Is the art show becoming too stressful? No, it's fine, Audrey replied too quickly. Thomas, Mr. Bailey, has been a tremendous help. Good to hear. Maxwell's smile didn't reach his eyes. I've taken time off next Thursday to attend that school board meeting about arts funding. I know how important it is to you. Audrey's face paled. Thursday was when she and Bailey had planned to meet at a hotel 30 miles away. Details Maxwell had discovered in their encrypted messages. You don't need to do that, she stammered. Those meetings are dreadfully boring. Nothing's boring when it matters to my family. Maxwell kissed her forehead, secretly enjoying her discomfort. Family is everything, isn't it, Audrey? That night, Maxwell added to his growing evidence file, while Audrey slept fitfully beside him. His revenge was taking shape in his mind, a complex multi-layer design worthy of his engineering expertise. In his home office, he unlocked a hidden safe and removed a small box containing items from his past that few knew about. Reminders of the hardened young man who'd fought his way out of poverty through sheer will and occasional necessary brutality. Maxwell had buried that version of himself beneath expensive suits and professional credentials, but he had never truly disappeared. He made a phone call to an old contact, someone who owed him a significant favor. By morning, he had access to Thomas Bailey's complete background, including details that hadn't appeared in the assistant principal's polished resume. The pieces were coming together. Maxwell closed the file and whispered to himself, begin where they feel safest. The art room. Chapter 3. Structural Weaknesses. The art room at Westlake Elementary became the center of Maxwell's surveillance. He volunteered to upgrade the outdated electrical system, installing new outlets and improved lighting, along with hidden cameras and microphones strategically placed throughout the room and in the adjoining storage closet. From his laptop, Maxwell watched as his wife and her lover met after school hours, their relationship evolving from professional to intimate among the children's artwork and supplies. He recorded their conversations, their plans, their declarations of love, and their complaints about their current lives, particularly Audrey's lamentations about being married to a controlling, emotionless machine. Max only cares about appearances and achievement, she told Bailey during one afternoon meeting. He sees Penny and me as possessions, not people. Bailey pulled her close. We'll figure this out, AD. You and Penny deserve better than living under his thumb. Maxwell noted how they had already included his daughter in their plans. Their intention to tear apart his family was now undeniable. Through his investigation, Maxwell discovered Thomas Bailey wasn't who he claimed to be. The assistant principal had changed his name from Timothy Blackwell after leaving Arizona under suspicious circumstances involving inappropriate relationships with parents at his previous school. Nothing had been proven, but Bailey had resigned rather than face an investigation. Maxwell also learned that Bailey had a pattern of targeting vulnerable women, particularly those in unhappy marriages. He had significant gambling debts and had recently made inquiries about teaching positions abroad, suggesting he might eventually abandon Audrey after destroying her marriage. Instead of confronting them, Maxwell began the first phase of his plan. He anonymously sent Bailey's gambling creditors his current address. He arranged for Audrey to overhear carefully orchestrated phone conversations suggesting financial problems with his company, making her believe they might lose everything. He began subtly undermining Bailey at school, questioning his decisions during committee meetings and suggesting his qualifications might be exaggerated. The pressure caused Bailey to make mistakes. He snapped at students, showed up late to meetings, and began pushing Audrey to accelerate their timeline. "We need to tell Maxwell soon," Bailey insisted during a meeting in the art room storage closet. "I'm tired of sneaking around. You promised you'd leave him by the end of the semester." "It's complicated, Tom," Audrey whispered. "There's Penny to consider, and now with his company possibly in trouble." "That's not your problem anymore." Bailey's voice hardened. "Unless you're having second thoughts?" Maxwell watched the doubt cross his wife's face. She was trapped between them, exactly as he intended. The art show became the perfect backdrop for Maxwell's plan. As the exhibition date approached, the massive kiln in Audrey's classroom worked overtime, firing dozens of student projects. The kiln, an industrial-sized chamber that reached temperatures of over 2,000 degrees, fascinated Maxwell. It could reduce clay to permanent, hardened forms or destroy objects completely, leaving only ash. During his volunteer hours, Maxwell studied its operation, timing cycles, and safety features. He discovered that Audrey sometimes left it running overnight, against school policy. He documented these violations without reporting them, storing them for future use. Meanwhile, he began preparing Penelope, subtly shaping her understanding of what was happening around her. "Penny," he asked one evening while helping with homework, "do you like spending time in Mommy's art room after school?" Penelope shrugged. "Sometimes it's boring when she talks to Mr. Bailey for a long time. They make me wait in the reading corner and say grown-ups need private time." Maxwell kept his expression neutral. "Do they ever use the big kiln when you're there?" "Uh-huh. Mommy says I have to stay far away because it's super dangerous. It could burn me up until there's nothing left." Penelope's eyes widened. "Mr. Bailey says it's like a monster that eats anything you put inside. Is that right?" Maxwell stroked his daughter's hair. "Well, Mr. Bailey certainly has a vivid imagination." That night, Maxwell finalized the details of his revenge. The foundation was set, the structural weaknesses identified. Now it was time to apply pressure until everything cracked apart. Chapter 4: Controlled Demolition. Maxwell's plan accelerated the week before the art exhibition. He began by sending an anonymous email to the school board questioning Thomas Bailey's credentials, suggesting they investigate the gap in his employment history. Simultaneously, he arranged for photos of Audrey and Bailey embracing in the art room to be delivered to Bailey's apartment with a simple note: "The husband knows." The psychological pressure produced immediate results. Bailey called Audrey in a panic, demanding they accelerate their plan. Maxwell, listening through his surveillance system, heard the assistant principal's true character emerge as his composure cracked. "We need to leave now," Bailey insisted. "Take Penelope and meet me tomorrow." "I don't care what you tell Maxwell. I can't just kidnap my daughter," Audrey protested. "And the art show? Forget the damn art show. Your husband is onto us. Do you understand what someone like him could do? He has connections everywhere." Maxwell smiled as he heard the fear in Bailey's voice. The man had researched him, discovered the ruthless reputation Maxwell maintained in business circles. Good. Fear would make him careless. That evening, Maxwell behaved with icy courtesy toward Audrey. He noticed her trembling hands and nervous glances at her phone. When Penelope was asleep, He casually mentioned seeing Bailey at a local restaurant with an attractive young woman. Probably nothing, Maxwell said with calculated indifference, though they seemed quite familiar with each other. Audrey's face drained of color. You must be mistaken. Perhaps. Maxwell shrugged. Oh, by the way, I'll need to take Penny with me to the office tomorrow afternoon. Board members want to meet my family before approving the new development project. This disrupted the escape plan he'd overheard. Audrey tried to object, but fell silent when Maxwell fixed her with a cold stare. Is there a problem with me spending time with my daughter, Audrey? The next day, instead of taking Penelope to his office, Maxwell brought her to an appointment with a child psychologist, a specialist in preparing children for testimony in divorce cases. He had carefully selected Dr. Vivian Reynolds, explaining that he suspected his wife was having an inappropriate relationship that might be affecting their daughter. I'm not asking you to manipulate her, Maxwell assured the doctor. I just want a professional record of anything she may have witnessed. During their session, Penelope innocently revealed disturbing details. How Bailey gave her tablets with headphones during their private talks, how she'd seen them kissing in the kiln room, how they sometimes argued about when to leave Daddy behind. Maxwell recorded the session legally with the doctor's permission. Another piece secured. Meanwhile, Bailey was unraveling. The gambling debts Maxwell had exposed were now being actively pursued by collectors. His credentials were under scrutiny by the school board, and the woman Bailey had been seen with, carefully arranged by Maxwell, had begun calling the school repeatedly, claiming to be his fiancée from Arizona. That evening, Maxwell initiated the next phase. He entered Audrey's classroom after hours, wearing gloves and a maintenance uniform borrowed from the school's janitor, a man who owed Maxwell a favor after he'd helped his son avoid criminal charges the previous year. In the empty art room, Maxwell accessed the kiln and made certain modifications. Nothing that would cause catastrophic failure, but enough to ensure it wouldn't shut off automatically during its next firing cycle. He then planted evidence in Bailey's desk drawer, printouts of conversations between Bailey and an online gambling site, alongside brochures for schools in South America. Finally, Maxwell placed a small, specialized recording device inside one of Penelope's clay sculptures, a family figure that was scheduled to be fired in the kiln the next day as part of the exhibition preparations. The device, developed by a security firm Maxwell's company had acquired, could withstand extreme heat. As he finished his work, Maxwell heard footsteps approaching. He slipped into the storage closet just as Audrey and Bailey entered, already in the middle of a heated argument. You were seen with another woman, Audrey accused, and now someone sent my husband evidence of us together. Keep your voice down, Bailey hissed. Your paranoid husband is turning you against me. There is no other woman. Then explain these. Audrey thrust her phone at him. On screen were photos of Bailey with the woman Maxwell had arranged, pictures taken by the private investigator he'd hired. Someone's setting me up, Bailey insisted, though doubt clouded his voice. Probably your husband. Through the crack in the door, Maxwell watched their relationship fracture exactly as he'd designed it would. The argument escalated until Bailey grabbed Audrey's arm roughly, another action captured by Maxwell's hidden cameras. We're leaving tomorrow after the kiln firing, Bailey declared. With or without your daughter. I can't stay here anymore. The threat against Penelope was the final piece Maxwell needed. He silently recorded their conversation on his phone, then slipped out while they continued arguing. Outside in his car, Maxwell sent one text message to Bailey. Touch my daughter, lose everything. He included a photo taken seconds ago of Bailey grabbing Audrey's arm, letting him know he was being watched. The demolition was proceeding exactly according to plan. Chapter 5, Pressure Points. The day of the final kiln firing arrived. The school buzzed with excitement about the upcoming exhibition, unaware of the tension building in the art room. Maxwell had arranged to attend the firing as a parent volunteer, positioning himself to witness the culmination of his revenge plan. That morning, he had taken Penelope aside before school. Remember, Penny, if you ever feel scared at school today, you call me immediately. Not Mommy, not Mr. Bailey. Me. He handed her a new phone. This is our special connection. Why would I be scared, Daddy? Penelope's innocent question carried a hint of anxiety. Just precaution, sweetheart. Like the safety measures we take at construction sites. Maxwell hugged her tightly. Sometimes adults make bad decisions. My job is protecting you from consequences. At the school, Maxwell maintained a cordial facade while observing Audrey's increasing distress. She'd received his anonymous package that morning. Divorce papers accompanied by evidence of her affair and a custody agreement granting him full rights to Penelope. No explanation, no demands, just the cold reality of what awaited her. Bailey arrived looking worse. The assistant principal's typically polished appearance had deteriorated. He was unshaven, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. The school principal, Diana Russell, had called him in for questioning about his credentials that morning. Another thread pulled by Maxwell. The kiln loading proceeded under Audrey's nervous supervision. Students carefully placed their projects inside, including Penelope's family sculpture with its hidden recording device. Maxwell helped, offering encouraging words to the children while monitoring Bailey's increasingly erratic behavior. The temperature seems off, Maxwell casually mentioned to Audrey as she programmed the kiln. Are you sure it's calibrated correctly? His question, deliberately asked in front of others, made her second-guess herself. She rechecked the settings, unaware of the modifications he'd made. The small seeds of doubt would blossom into panic later. During lunch break, Maxwell ensured Penelope stayed with him rather than returning to the classroom as Audrey had requested. This disrupted the escape plan he knew they had formulated. They couldn't leave without his daughter. Your wife seems distracted today, Principal Russell commented when she joined Maxwell and Penelope in the cafeteria. Is everything all right? Audrey's been under considerable stress lately, Maxwell replied, his concern appearing genuine. I'm worried about her relationship with certain staff members becoming inappropriate. Russell's eyebrows raised. Are you suggesting? I'm not making accusations, Maxwell said carefully. But I've noticed some concerning interactions between my wife and Mr. Bailey. Penny has mentioned some troubling things as well. Daddy, you said that was our secret. Penelope interjected, confused. Maxwell gently touched his daughter's hand. Sometimes adults need to share secrets to keep everyone safe, sweetheart. The principal's expression hardened. Mr. Hargrove, if you have concerns about professional conduct, perhaps we should discuss this privately after the exhibition, Maxwell suggested. For now, I'm keeping a close eye on the situation. The seed was planted. Maxwell excused himself to take a call, stepping into the hallway to activate the next phase. He sent a text to Bailey from an untraceable phone. The authorities know about Arizona. Leave now or face arrest. Through his surveillance app, Maxwell watched Bailey receive the message in Audrey's classroom. The assistant principal's face contorted with panic. He immediately called Audrey, who was monitoring the kiln firing. Maxwell returned to the art room just as a heated argument erupted between Audrey and Bailey in the supply closet. Their voices carried, drawing attention from nearby teachers. Principal Russell, alerted by another staff member, headed toward the classroom with concern. What do you mean you can't get Penelope? Bailey was shouting. We had a plan. Her father has her, Audrey hissed. And what's this about Arizona? What haven't you told me? It's nothing, Lies. Your husband is manipulating everything. Maxwell stepped forward as Principal Russell entered the room. Is everything all right in here? The kiln seems to be smoking more than usual, Audrey. All eyes turned to the kiln, which was indeed emitting more smoke than normal, the result of Maxwell's tampering. Audrey rushed to check the controls, finding the temperature climbing well above the program setting. Something's wrong, she said, panic rising in her voice. It's not responding. Everyone out, Maxwell commanded, taking control of the situation. Potential fire hazard. As teachers evacuated the children, Bailey pulled Audrey aside. We need to leave now. Grab what you can from the kiln. Your evidence. Evidence? Maxwell asked innocently, positioning himself within earshot. What evidence would be in a children's art project? Bailey blanched, realizing his mistake. Audrey looked confused, then horrified as understanding dawned. Tom, what did you do? She demanded. Before Bailey could answer, the kiln's alarm sounded. a piercing warning that the temperature had reached critical levels. Smoke poured from the seals, triggering the school's fire system. Water sprinklers activated, soaking everyone as children screamed in the hallway. In the chaos, Maxwell pulled Principal Russell aside. My daughter mentioned Bailey storing something in the kiln, something he didn't want found. That's why they've been so protective of it. Russell's professional composure cracked. What are you implying? I'm not sure, Maxwell said gravely. But given his unexplained background and obsession with my wife and daughter, the principal immediately called security while Maxwell helped evacuate the building. In the confusion, he managed to activate the recording device in Penelope's sculpture using his phone. The device would now broadcast incriminating statements from anyone near it, including Bailey's earlier comments about fleeing with or without Penelope. As the evacuation continued, Maxwell made sure to stay with his daughter, documenting everything on his phone, including Bailey's increasingly desperate attempts to return to the art room and Audrey's confused, panicked reactions. The pressure points had been activated. The structure was beginning to collapse. Chapter 6: Fault Lines. Fire trucks arrived at Westlake Elementary as thick smoke poured from the art room windows. Students huddled in the parking lot, teachers taking attendance while parents began arriving, alerted by the school's emergency system. Maxwell stood with Penelope, watching the scene unfold with calculated calm. "Where's Mommy?" Penelope asked, clutching her father's hand. "I'm sure she's helping make sure everyone is safe," Maxwell reassured her, though he knew exactly where Audrey was, still inside with Bailey, desperately trying to salvage what they could from the malfunctioning kiln. Principal Russell approached them, her face grim. "Mr. Hargrove, have you seen your wife? She's not with the other teachers." "She's not." Maxwell's concern appeared genuine. "She must still be inside. She was very worried about the kiln. Firefighters are doing a sweep now. No one should be in there." Russell's voice lowered. "Mr. Bailey is also unaccounted for." Maxwell nodded solemnly. "Perhaps they're together." The principal's expression tightened at his implication. Before she could respond, commotion erupted at the school entrance. Firefighters emerged, escorting Audrey and Bailey, both soot-covered and coughing. Paramedics rushed forward while police officers separated the pair for questioning. Maxwell handed Penelope to his sister, Whitney, who had arrived minutes earlier, part of his prearranged contingency plan. "Stay with Aunt Whitney, sweetheart. Daddy needs to check on Mommy." As he approached, Maxwell heard Bailey shouting at the officers. "You don't understand. There's evidence in that kiln, evidence of his controlling abuse. He's been threatening us, manipulating everything." The officers exchanged skeptical glances as Bailey grew more agitated. Maxwell remained at a calculated distance, close enough to observe, but far enough to appear uninvolved. Principal Russell joined the officers, pulling one aside to share Maxwell's earlier insinuations. The officer's demeanor toward Bailey immediately hardened. Audrey sat wrapped in a shock blanket, her expression dazed. When she spotted Maxwell, something shifted in her eyes, the first glimmer of understanding that she'd been maneuvered into this position. "Sir, we need to ask you some questions." An officer approached Maxwell. "Of course. Anything to help." Maxwell's cooperative tone contrasted sharply with Bailey's continued protests. The questioning revealed exactly what Maxwell had orchestrated. Bailey had convinced Audrey to store something valuable in the kiln, supposedly documentation of Maxwell's controlling behavior and financial crimes, though no evidence existed. Bailey had tampered with the kiln's settings despite Audrey's warnings about safety protocols, resulting in the malfunction. Most damning was the recording from inside Penelope's clay sculpture, perfectly positioned to capture Bailey's incriminating statements about leaving with or without Maxwell's daughter. The recording device, designed to withstand high temperatures, had broadcast the conversation directly to Maxwell's phone before being destroyed in the fire. "He was planning to take my daughter," Maxwell told the officers, his voice breaking with well-practiced emotion. "My wife may have been involved, but I believe she was manipulated. Thomas Bailey has a history of this behavior." By late afternoon, Bailey was taken into custody, not just for the school incident, but for questioning regarding his false credentials and the outstanding warrants Maxwell had arranged to have discovered from Arizona. Audrey was released after preliminary questioning, though informed that further investigation would follow. As parents collected their children, Maxwell brought Penelope to where Audrey sat isolated on a bench. His daughter ran to her mother, who embraced her with desperate intensity. "Mommy, are you hurt? Daddy said the monster kiln got too hungry." Audrey's tear-streaked face looked up at Maxwell, recognition dawning in her eyes. "No, baby. I'm okay. Just a little scared. We should get you home," Maxwell said quietly. "This has been traumatic for everyone." "Max," Audrey began, her voice barely audible. "Not now." He cut her off with a meaningful glance toward their daughter. "We'll discuss everything later." As they walked toward his car, Principal Russell intercepted them. "Mrs. Hargrove, given the circumstances, the board feels it's best you take administrative leave until this matter is resolved." Audrey nodded numbly, while Maxwell offered appropriately concerned responses. In the background, Bailey was being placed in a police car, his career and reputation systematically dismantled. That evening, after putting Penelope to bed, Maxwell finally confronted Audrey in their kitchen. He silently placed a folder on the counter between them, containing every piece of evidence he'd gathered about her affair, including intimate photos, text messages, and recorded conversations. "How long have you known?" Audrey whispered, her hands trembling as she looked through the file. "Long enough." Maxwell's voice carried no emotion. "The real question is, did you actually believe I wouldn't find out? That I wouldn't protect what's mine? Penelope was never in danger. I wouldn't. Stop lying." Maxwell's calm facade cracked slightly, revealing the cold fury beneath. "I heard everything. You were willing to destroy our family for a man who's been investigated for inappropriate relationships at 3 different schools, who has gambling debts he hoped you'd help pay, who is planning to use you and discard you." Audrey collapsed into a chair, the weight of reality crushing her. "What happens now?" Maxwell placed another document before her, divorce papers already prepared. "You signed these. You agree to full custody for me with limited supervised visitation for you. You leave this house tonight. You orchestrated all of this." Audrey realized, horror dawning on her face. "The kiln, the evidence, the fire. You destroyed everything." "I protected what's mine." Maxwell's voice was steel. "Bailey tried to take my daughter. You helped him. The consequences could have been much worse. You can't just erase me from Penelope's life. She needs her mother. She needs stability and protection from poor influences." Maxwell leaned forward. "Sign the papers, Audrey, or tomorrow I release everything, including evidence suggesting you knew about Bailey's past and endangered students. Your teaching career, your reputation, any possibility of seeing Penelope again, all gone." Tears streamed down Audrey's face as the full extent of Maxwell's revenge became clear. He hadn't just ended her affair. He'd systematically dismantled her entire life, leaving her with nothing but the choices he allowed her. "You won't get away with this," she whispered. Maxwell smiled coldly. "I already have." Chapter 7. Structural Remains. "My daughter's school principal called. Your wife? She was here. There was an altercation in the art room." 3 months after the kiln incident, Maxwell received this frantic call while in a business meeting. Despite the finalized divorce and restraining order preventing Audrey from contacting Penelope unsupervised, his ex-wife had appeared at the school, demanding to see their daughter. "I arrived to police tape. My wife was being questioned, my daughter crying in my sister's arms." Whitney had picked up Penelope according to the new custody arrangement, only to encounter a scene of chaos. Audrey, disheveled and emotional, had forced her way into the art room, now renovated after the fire damage, and barricaded herself inside, threatening to reveal the truth about Maxwell. Maxwell found the school surrounded by police cars, their lights flashing against the brick building. Whitney stood by her car, holding Penelope, who sobbed uncontrollably. "Mommy is dangerous, Daddy," Penelope cried as Maxwell approached. Her words cut through him, not with remorse, but with satisfaction that his careful conditioning had worked. For months, he had subtly reinforced the narrative that Mommy had been sick, making bad decisions that endangered others. He arranged for therapists who specialized in parental alienation. Only they were working for him, gradually separating Penelope emotionally from her mother through seemingly supportive therapy. Principal Russell met Maxwell at the police line. "Your ex-wife is making concerning statements, Mr. Hargrove. She's claiming you fabricated evidence, tampered with school equipment." "Diana, you've known me for years," Maxwell interrupted smoothly. "Audrey has been struggling since losing custody. Her relationship with Bailey ended when he accepted a plea deal implicating her. Now she's creating conspiracy theories to explain away her choices." Inside the school, negotiators were attempting to talk Audrey out of the art room. Maxwell could hear her voice, high and desperate, through the school's open doors. My wife yelled, "Don't let them show you the clay kiln. It's a nightmare." The new kiln, installed after the fire, had become the focus of Audrey's breakdown. She insisted evidence of Maxwell's manipulation was hidden inside it, that he had engineered the entire incident to frame her and Bailey. A police officer approached Maxwell. "Sir, your ex-wife is demanding to speak with you. She claims you'll confess if confronted directly." Maxwell adopted a concerned expression. "I'll speak with her if you think it will help. My priority is ending this safely for everyone, especially my daughter." Before entering, Maxwell spoke briefly with Whitney. "Take Penny home. She shouldn't see her mother like this." "Are you sure you should go in there?" Whitney asked. "What if she becomes violent?" Maxwell's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Audrey was never the violent one in our relationship." The officer escorted Maxwell to the art room door. Through the small window, he could see Audrey pacing inside. The room had been rebuilt, but the memories remained, just as he'd intended. Every time she thought of the art room, she would remember how thoroughly he had destroyed her. "Audrey," he called through the door. "It's Maxwell. Let's talk." Her face appeared in the window, eyes wild with a combination of fear and rage. "Tell them what you did, Max. Tell them how you set everything up." "I'm coming in," he said calmly. "Just me. No police." The officers objected, but Maxwell insisted. "She won't hurt me. This is between us." The door unlocked with a click. Maxwell entered, closing it behind him. Audrey stood in the center of the room, near the new kiln, larger and more modern than the one that had malfunctioned. "You destroyed everything," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "My career, my reputation, my relationship with Penny. You did that yourself," Maxwell replied coldly. "When you decided our family wasn't enough. When you planned to take my daughter. That was Tom's idea, not mine. I would never." "But you didn't stop him." Maxwell cut her off. "You participated. That's all that matters." Audrey's shoulders slumped. "No one believes me. They think I'm crazy, obsessed with conspiracy theories." "Because that's exactly what I wanted them to think." Maxwell's admission was quiet, meant only for her ears. Every step planned, every reaction predicted. From the moment Penny mentioned Bailey, I knew how this would end. "I want to see my daughter," Audrey pleaded. "She's forgetting me, Max. The things she says when I call. She's afraid of me now." "Good." Maxwell's mask dropped completely, revealing the ruthless calculator beneath. "She should fear what happens when people betray those who love them." Audrey stared at him, finally understanding the full extent of his vengeance. "You never loved me. You just considered me your property. I gave you everything." Maxwell stepped closer. "A beautiful home, financial security, social status. Things you never would have achieved on your own. Then you threw it away for a man who saw you as disposable." "She'll figure it out eventually," Audrey said, a spark of defiance returning. "Penny will see what you really are." "Perhaps." Maxwell shrugged. "But by then, you'll be nothing but a distant, troubled memory. The mother who chose a predator over her own family." Audrey lunged toward the kiln. "I saved a piece. One piece of evidence from the original kiln that proves what you did." Maxwell watched calmly as she frantically pulled at the new kiln's door, finding nothing inside but empty ceramic shelves. Her evidence, likely imagined, was long gone, destroyed in the fire or during the renovation. I peeked inside and then my soul shattered. This is what Maxwell would later tell the police, that he had followed his distraught ex-wife to the kiln, concerned she had hidden something dangerous inside it, that he had watched her emotional collapse when she realized her evidence was gone, that he had tried to comfort her, only to have her attack him in desperation. The reality, witnessed only by the two of them, was quite different. As Audrey broke down beside the empty kiln, Maxwell silently recorded her breakdown on his phone, further evidence of her instability for the inevitable custody hearing that would terminate her remaining visitation rights. "It's over, Audrey," he said softly. "There's nothing left for you here." The finality in his voice broke something inside her. With a primal scream, Audrey grabbed a ceramic tool and swung it at Maxwell. He easily deflected the blow, caught her wrist, and used her momentum to slam her against the kiln. The impact left her dazed, sliding to the floor as he calmly stepped back. Maxwell walked to the door, straightened his tie, and mussed his hair slightly. Then he called out to the officers waiting outside. "She attacked me. She needs help." The aftermath unfolded exactly as he had orchestrated. Audrey was taken to a psychiatric facility for evaluation. The incident was documented as further evidence of her deteriorating mental state. Maxwell appeared the concerned ex-husband, worried about the mother of his child despite her actions. Penelope, already emotionally separated from her mother through months of subtle manipulation, accepted Maxwell's explanation that mommy's sickness made her do scary things. The final threads connecting daughter and mother were severed. That night, as Maxwell tucked Penelope into bed, she asked the question he had been waiting for. "Is mommy ever coming back?" Maxwell stroked her hair gently. "No, sweetheart, but you don't need to worry about that. You have me, and I will never let anyone take you away or hurt you. Not ever." In the darkness of his daughter's room, Maxwell Hargrove smiled. The structure of his revenge was complete, built with the same exacting precision as his architectural masterpieces. Permanent, unforgiving, perfect. Chapter 8. Inspection Report. 6 months after Audrey's breakdown at the school, Maxwell sat in his home office reviewing the final report from her psychiatric evaluation. The diagnosis confirmed what he had methodically engineered: delusional disorder with persecutory features, exacerbated by adjustment disorder following divorce and loss of custody. The court had terminated her remaining visitation rights, pending significant improvement and extended stability, conditions Maxwell had ensured would be nearly impossible to meet through his careful documentation of every outburst, every conspiracy theory she had developed about his role in her downfall. A soft knock interrupted his review. Whitney entered, her expression troubled. "Penny's asleep," she said, taking a seat across from him. "Max, we need to talk about Thomas Bailey." Maxwell raised an eyebrow. His sister had been an unwitting accomplice in his revenge, believing the narrative he had constructed about Bailey being a predator who had manipulated Audrey into endangering Penelope. "What about him?" "His sister contacted me." Whitney placed a business card on the desk. "She's convinced he was set up. Says he had evidence proving it before his arrest. Evidence that conveniently disappeared in a kiln fire," Maxwell noted dryly. "How remarkable." "Max," Whitney studied her brother carefully. "Did you orchestrate all of this? The affair, the fire, Bailey's arrest?" "The affair was their choice," Maxwell replied, his voice neutral. "Everything that followed was simply consequence." Whitney's eyes widened slightly. Though they had grown up together in poverty, she had never fully understood the depths of her brother's capacity for vengeance. She had glimpsed it occasionally in childhood, when neighborhood bullies mysteriously suffered accidents after targeting them, when business rivals unexpectedly faced investigations or audits. "Bailey's serving 3 years, she said quietly. "Audrey's institutionalized. Their lives are destroyed. They try to take my daughter." Maxwell's expression remained unchanged. "No one takes what's mine." Whitney stood, unsettled by his coldness. "What happens when Penny grows up, when she starts asking questions? By then, the narrative will be firmly established. The unstable mother, the predatory administrator, the father who protected her from both. Maxwell gathered the psychiatric reports into a folder. Perception is reality, Whitney. You know that. After his sister left, Maxwell accessed his private server containing the complete documentation of his revenge. Unlike the scattered evidence Audrey claimed to have, his records were meticulous. Every conversation recorded, every manipulation documented, every contingency planned for. He reviewed Bailey's case with satisfaction. The former assistant principal had accepted a plea deal for identity fraud and child endangerment, rather than face more serious charges Maxwell had manufactured. Bailey would never work in education again. His reputation was permanently destroyed. Maxwell's private investigator had reported that Bailey's gambling debts had mounted during his incarceration. His family had abandoned him after discovering the extent of his deceptions. Upon release, he would have nothing, exactly as Maxwell had planned. More satisfying was the report on Audrey. Isolated in a psychiatric facility outside Boston, she continued to insist that Maxwell had orchestrated everything, claims that only reinforced her diagnosis. Her parents, initially supportive, had gradually accepted Maxwell's version of events, especially after he arranged for them to maintain a relationship with Penelope despite Audrey's condition. The art teacher, who had once been vibrant and creative now, spent her days in group therapy, her artistic talents dulled by medication. Maxwell had arranged for specific details of her breakdown to reach the art education community, ensuring no school would ever risk hiring her again. His phone chimed with a message from Penelope's therapist, another professional carefully selected by Maxwell. The therapist reported continued progress in helping Penelope process her traumatic experiences with her mother. The child now rarely asked about Audrey, focusing instead on her relationship with Maxwell and her activities at her new school. Maxwell closed his laptop, satisfaction settling over him like a comfortable cloak. He had not merely ended a threat to his family. He had systematically erased Audrey and Bailey from his life, while maintaining his reputation as a devoted father and successful businessman. A text message interrupted his contemplation. A woman he had been seeing casually for the past month, a widow with a young son who served as a convenient playmate for Penelope. Thinking of you, her message read. Hope tomorrow's museum trip with the kids will be fun. Maxwell smiled slightly as he typed his response. Allison was perfect for his purposes. Attractive enough to be seen with, successful enough to not need his money, and emotionally vulnerable enough to be easily controlled. Her presence reinforced his image as a recovering single father, bravely moving forward. The next day, as they walked through the Science Museum with their children running ahead, Allison slipped her hand into his. "You're amazing with Penny," she said softly. "After everything she's been through with her mother, she's so well-adjusted. Children are resilient with proper guidance," Maxwell replied, watching his daughter explain an exhibit to Allison's son. "Penelope knows I'll always protect her, no matter what." "Her mother still hasn't tried to contact her?" Allison asked. Maxwell's expression darkened momentarily. Audrey made her choices. Now she lives with the consequences. Later that night, after returning home and putting Penelope to bed, Maxwell received an unexpected call. Bailey's attorney requesting a meeting. "My client has information you might find valuable," the lawyer explained vaguely. "He's willing to trade it for your support at his upcoming parole hearing." Maxwell agreed to the meeting, curious what desperate play Bailey might attempt from prison. He wasn't concerned. Every contingency had been planned for, every potential threat neutralized before it could materialize. The structure he had built was sound. Unlike the family home he had shared with Audrey, the one he had sold immediately after the divorce, his revenge had no structural flaws, no points of weakness that could be exploited. As he stood in his new home's kitchen, Maxwell poured himself a glass of whiskey and toasted his reflection in the window. Beyond the glass, the city lights sparkled like the future he had secured, one entirely under his control. Chapter 9. Final Inspection. 1 year to the day after the kiln incident, Maxwell Hargrove stood in the courtroom as Thomas Bailey's parole hearing concluded. Despite Bailey's attorney presenting supposed new evidence of manipulation, the parole board had denied the request. Maxwell had made certain of it through his connections within the state's judicial system. Bailey, thinner and gray-faced after 18 months in prison, stared at Maxwell with undisguised hatred as guards led him away. Maxwell met his gaze calmly, the slightest smile touching his lips, a private acknowledgement of his complete victory. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered around Maxwell, eager for comment from the successful businessman whose family had been torn apart by scandal. "Mr. Hargrove, do you feel justice has been served today?" Maxwell adopted the appropriately solemn expression he had perfected. "I take no pleasure in Mr. Bailey's continued incarceration. My only concern has always been my daughter's well-being and safety. Have you had any contact with your ex-wife?" "Audrey's condition remains unchanged," Maxwell replied with rehearsed compassion. "My daughter and I pray for her recovery, though the doctors advise us to maintain distance for now." The lies flowed easily, reinforcing the narrative he had constructed. In reality, Audrey remained institutionalized with little hope of release. Her parents had relocated to Arizona, maintaining only occasional phone contact with Penelope under Maxwell's strict supervision. As Maxwell walked to his car, his attorney fell into step beside him. Vivian Chun had represented him throughout the divorce and subsequent legal battles, unaware of the extent of his manipulations. "Bailey's attorney approached me with something interesting," Chun said quietly. "Apparently, there's a student who claimed to have seen you in the art room the day before the fire, tampering with the kiln." Maxwell showed no reaction. "And this student magically appears 18 months later? Convenient." The student's family moved abroad shortly after the incident. They only recently learned of Bailey's conviction when they returned. Chin studied his face. "If there's anything I should know, Maxwell," a desperate attempt by a guilty man to deflect blame. Maxwell dismissed the concern with a wave. "Bailey endangered children with his recklessness. No fabricated witness will change that." Chin nodded, though something in her expression suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. It didn't matter. Maxwell had insurance against any such claims. Documentation showing he had been in meetings during the time in question, security footage from his office building carefully edited to support his alibi. That evening, Maxwell hosted a small dinner party at his new home, a modernist masterpiece he had designed himself, featuring clean lines and impenetrable security systems. Guests included colleagues, Penelope's teacher, and Allison, now his fiancée after a carefully orchestrated 8-month relationship. As Allison helped Penelope serve dessert, Maxwell observed them with cool assessment. The woman had proven useful, providing a maternal figure for his daughter while enhancing his image as a devoted father rebuilding his life. Their upcoming marriage would complete the picture of recovery and resilience he had crafted for public consumption. After the guests departed, Maxwell found Penelope in her bedroom, staring at an old photograph of Audrey. "I found this in one of the moving boxes," she explained, quickly setting it aside, as if afraid of his reaction. Maxwell sat beside her on the bed. "It's okay to remember your mother, Penny. Dr. Winters says it's normal to miss her sometimes," Penelope said cautiously, referencing her therapist. "Even though she did bad things. Dr. Winters is right." Maxwell chose his words carefully, maintaining the narrative. "Your mother loved you in her way. She just couldn't separate that love from her problems. Will I ever see her again?" Maxwell brushed Penelope's hair from her forehead. "Perhaps someday, when she's better. For now, we need to focus on our future. Are you excited about the wedding?" The child nodded, easily redirected. "Allison said I can help pick her dress." "That's wonderful." Maxwell kissed her forehead. "Sleep now. Tomorrow we have the final tasting for the wedding cake." After Penelope was asleep, Maxwell went to his study and unlocked a hidden safe concealed behind a bookshelf. Inside were the original files documenting his revenge, recordings, photographs, correspondence with the private investigators and specialists he had employed. He removed each item, feeding them into a high-security shredder. The digital copies had already been transferred to an encrypted drive, which he would store in a bank vault registered under a shell corporation. No evidence would remain in his home, nothing that could be discovered should anyone ever grow suspicious enough to investigate. As he finished destroying the physical evidence, Maxwell's phone chimed with a message from an anonymous number, a rarity given his extensive security protocols. The text contained only an image, the interior of the original art room kiln, taken the day before the fire. In the photo, a man's hand was visible adjusting the wiring. Though the face wasn't visible, the distinctive watch on the wrist was unmistakably Maxwell's. A second message followed. Bailey isn't the only one who preserved evidence. Meet tomorrow, 2 p.m., Harbor Point. Come alone or this goes to authorities. Maxwell stared at the messages, his expression unchanging despite the unexpected development. Someone had managed to document his tampering, the one moment he had believed himself unobserved. Instead of concern, he felt a familiar calm settle over him, the same detached calculation that had guided his revenge. This was merely a new problem requiring solution, another threat to eliminate. He opened his laptop and accessed a private server, typing a series of commands that would activate contacts he hadn't utilized since his youth in South Boston. Men who specialized in problems that couldn't be solved through legal channels. The next day, Maxwell arrived at Harbor Point precisely at 2 p.m. The meeting location was a public park overlooking the harbor, open enough to discourage violence, isolated enough for private conversation. He wore a casual suit that concealed the recording equipment documenting the encounter. A woman approached his bench, early 50s, professionally dressed, vaguely familiar. It took him a moment to place her. Eleanor Davis, a former art teacher who had worked with Audrey before retiring the year before the incident. Mr. Hargrove, she acknowledged, taking a seat beside him. You have something that belongs to me, Maxwell replied without preamble. Insurance, not blackmail, Eleanor clarified. I was retrieving supplies from the art room that day. Saw everything. Took the photo as protection when I realized what you were doing. What do you want? Audrey's release and rehabilitation. Full restoration of her visitation rights. A public acknowledgement that she was not responsible for the kiln malfunction. Maxwell smiled thinly. You're assuming your evidence would be sufficient. One photograph against my resources, my reputation, and a year of established narrative? The authorities would likely conclude the image was manipulated. Perhaps. Eleanor met his gaze without flinching. But the investigation alone would raise questions. Penny would hear rumors. Seeds of doubt would be planted. The mention of his daughter sharpened Maxwell's focus. You would put a child through that trauma? Force her to question everything she believes about her mother. You created that trauma, Eleanor countered. I'm offering you a controlled resolution. Audrey recovers mysteriously. You magnanimously support her rehabilitation. The narrative shifts to one of healing and forgiveness. Your daughter maintains stability while reconnecting with her mother. Maxwell considered her proposal with clinical detachment. The woman had clearly planned this carefully, understanding that threatening him directly would be useless. By positioning her blackmail as concern for Penelope, she had found his only potential vulnerability. I'll need time to arrange things, he said finally. Audrey's condition can improve overnight without raising suspicions. 1 month, Eleanor specified. I prepared evidence packages that will be released automatically if anything happens to me or if you fail to begin the process. Maxwell nodded, his expression revealing nothing of the calculations occurring behind his eyes. A month, then? You'll have proof of initial arrangements by next week. They parted without further discussion. Maxwell returned to his car, instructing his driver to take him to his office. In the privacy of the back seat, he reviewed the recording of their conversation, noting Eleanor's confidence and the absence of nervous tells that might indicate deception. She believed she had won, that her evidence and careful planning had checkmated him. The realization almost amused him. That evening, as Allison and Penelope discussed wedding details, Maxwell excused himself to make a series of calls. Within hours, his contingency plan was activated. The mechanism of his counterattack would be subtle. Financial records suggesting Eleanor had been embezzling from the school's art foundation before her retirement, evidence that would emerge gradually over the coming weeks. Simultaneously, he began the process Eleanor had demanded, arranging for specialists to review Audrey's case, initiating the paperwork that would eventually allow supervised visitation. These actions would appear genuine to any observer, including Eleanor herself. By the time the fabricated evidence against her became public, discrediting her completely, the authorized evidence packages would be intercepted by Maxwell's operatives. Eleanor Davis would join the growing list of casualties in his methodical quest for absolute control. 3 weeks later, Maxwell stood in his new study, watching a news report on Eleanor Davis's arrest for financial fraud. The former teacher appeared shocked and confused as officers escorted her from her home. The evidence against her was substantial and growing. Each new revelation making any claims against Maxwell seem increasingly like desperate attempts to deflect guilt. His phone rang, Principal Russell calling with concerns about the scandal's potential impact on the upcoming arts fundraiser Maxwell was sponsoring in Penelope's name. "I've already spoken with the board," he assured her. "This unfortunate situation won't affect our commitment to rebuilding the arts program. In fact, I'm increasing my donation in light of this betrayal of trust." After finishing the call, Maxwell checked his surveillance app, a specially designed program that allowed him to monitor both his home and Penelope's activities. His daughter was playing in the garden with Allison, helping plant flowers for the wedding ceremony that would take place there in 2 weeks. The scene represented the final phase of his reconstructed life: a loving father, a successful businessman, a community leader rising from personal tragedy. The narrative was complete, all loose ends eliminated or controlled. That night, Maxwell visited the last remaining physical connection to his revenge, a small storage unit registered under a false name, containing a single item. The original clay family sculpture Penelope had created, recovered from the kiln debris by one of his operatives before evidence teams arrived. The misshapen figures, father, mother, child, stood as a monument to what had been destroyed and what had been built in its place. Maxwell studied it briefly before sealing it in a concrete-filled container that would be disposed of in the harbor's deepest point. No evidence would remain, no possibility of discovery, no chance for redemption or forgiveness. On his wedding day, as Maxwell stood with Allison and their children before friends and colleagues, his expression was one of contentment and resolved grief, the public face of a man who had survived tragedy and found new happiness. Only he knew the truth beneath the performance, that his capacity for vengeance was limitless, that anyone who threatened what he considered his would be eliminated without mercy or hesitation. That forgiveness was a weakness he had purged from himself decades ago in the streets of South Boston. As he recited his vows, Maxwell caught sight of Penelope watching him with adoration, the child who would never know the full extent of what he had done to preserve his claim to her. In her eyes, he was the father who had protected her from danger, the hero of their story. In that moment, looking at his daughter, Maxwell Hargrove felt the closest thing to emotion he was capable of experiencing: absolute satisfaction in a plan perfectly executed. The revenge was complete. The structure would stand. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen, and I'll see you there.